In this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 NBA games happening on January 12, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 6 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 3 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Utah Jazz versus Cleveland Cavaliers. The Utah Jazz head to Cleveland on Monday to take on the Cavaliers at Rocket Arena. Utah just got blown out by the Hornets, did sneak a win over the Mavs before that, and they have the Bulls on deck. They have dropped 6 of their last 7, so confidence is not exactly overflowing right now. Cleveland, on the other hand, took care of the Pacers, split a mini set with the Timberwolves, and has the 76ers up next. They have won 5 of their last 7, and you can feel they are starting to find a better rhythm again. From the injury side, the Jazz are still without George Niang and Walker Kessler, with Ace Bailey sitting in that annoying questionable range. Cleveland has ruled out Dean Wade and Max Strus again, so their rotation is mostly the same as what we have seen recently. Utah has really had a rough stretch of form, and that 55-point beatdown from Charlotte is the kind of loss that can rattle a locker room. Cleveland is trending the opposite way, coming off a win over a very hot Timberwolves team, which naturally pushes this spread into hefty territory. It is that classic picture of one team sliding and the other climbing, so the market was always going to lean hard toward the Cavaliers. Here is where it gets interesting. Utah is not a strong team overall, but they sit around the top 10 in the league against the spread because they regularly get a healthy pile of points as underdogs. They were blown off the floor by the Hornets, but that came with Lauri Markkanen, Jusuf Nurkic, and Bailey all out. None of those guys is dealing with some season-altering issue, and Markkanen was sitting for rest, which matters a lot more for how you project their next game than that ugly final score. The Jazz are not stacking wins straight up, but they have still been a profitable group with a record of roughly 21-17 against the spread this season. Cleveland is probably playing some of its best basketball of the year, but from a betting angle they sit at a brutal 12-28 against the spread. They remain one of the worst tickets in the league to back. Even with the recent success on the floor, the Cavs have failed to cover in 4 of their last 5. They are also sitting at 0-6 against the spread in their last 6 games as double-digit favorites, and they have not covered a double-digit number since November 7th. That is a long drought for big home chalk. Honestly, I have repeated this idea a lot this season. You really do not want to be laying big numbers with this Cavaliers team. The history of these spots is just ugly, so when the line swells again, it is very fair to look at it and say, no thanks. It absolutely takes some guts to back Utah after they just lost by 55, because that score sticks in your mind. But the whole point of betting edges is finding spots that look uncomfortable to the public. You expect the Jazz to roll out a much stronger lineup here, and with their main pieces back, the number starts to lean their way rather than Cleveland's. Getting a decent chunk of points with them on the road becomes more attractive the more you look at how both teams perform against the spread. As our first pick for this matchup, the Utah Jazz to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Utah was missing 3 of their top scorers in that Hornets game, but all of them are expected to be back here, which shifts how this matchup should play out on the scoreboard. Markkanen is one of the better pure scorers in the league, even if casual fans do not talk about him as much as some of the bigger names. When he is on the floor, Utah's offense feels completely different, and you can almost feel defenses sag a little under the pressure. The Jazz rank 2nd in the league in pace, and they lean into that because they know their defense is not exactly a brick wall. They try to run, shoot, and flat-out outscore teams in what often turns into track meets. It is a bit like watching a pickup game where everyone knows nobody is staying in front of anyone, so you just try to be the first to 130. Cleveland helps that script rather than hurting it. They sit in the top 10 in tempo themselves, and with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland both healthy, they have the guards to keep pushing the ball and hunting early offense. Those two can turn a slow night into a shootout in a few possessions, and once the game speeds up, it is hard for it to slow back down. Utah just surrendered 150 points to Charlotte, which tells you plenty about their current defensive level and the type of games they end up playing. A team that runs that fast, plays that loose on defense, and now gets its main scorers back is almost tailor-made for another high-scoring night. Cleveland's scoring talent on the perimeter only adds fuel to that fire. So when you add it all up, you are looking at a matchup where both teams have the pieces and the pace to turn this into another offensive showcase rather than a grind. A stronger Utah lineup on offense, a fast tempo from both sides, and a recent history of big totals point toward a game that lands on the higher side of the projected number. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Philadelphia 76ers versus Toronto Raptors. The Philadelphia 76ers head north to face the Toronto Raptors on Monday at Scotiabank Arena. The 76ers are coming in off a win over the Magic, a loss to these same Raptors, and they have the Cavaliers waiting next on the schedule. They have still taken 5 of their last 7, so even with the hiccup against Toronto, their recent form is solid. Toronto just beat Philly in overtime, then dropped one to the Celtics, and they will see the Pacers next. They have won 7 of their last 10, so this is not a fluke stretch. It is a team that has quietly started stringing together results. Now, the second meeting in a quick 2-game stretch like this is often tighter and more tactical, which you would normally say leans toward the team that just lost, in this case the 76ers. They get another shot, they make adjustments, and the motivation to respond is obvious. But here is the thing, Philadelphia still has ongoing lineup issues, and this group just cannot seem to stay fully healthy for long. That kind of revolving door makes it harder to trust them against the number, even when the spot looks appealing on paper. On the other side, Toronto is dealing with its own injury concerns, yet they still managed to beat the 76ers in overtime the night before. That kind of grinded-out win does more than just add a tally in the standings. It feeds belief in the locker room. You win a close one like that, especially as a dog, and the group tends to play even more freely the next time out. The Raptors are now 7-3 straight up and against the spread across their last 10 games, which shows that this is not just a scrappy team, it is also one that has been priced a bit too low recently. They have also taken 6 of the last 7 meetings against the 76ers, so Toronto has had the better of this matchup for a while. Honestly, when one side keeps cashing tickets in the same pairing, bettors notice, even if the market is a little slow to react. As an underdog, Toronto has been even more impressive. They are 6-0 against the spread and 5-1 straight up over their last 6 games when catching points. That is the kind of underdog profile that makes people very hesitant to lay road chalk against them, especially in their building. You are getting a team that is comfortable in the underdog role, playing with confidence, and already holding a recent overtime win over this same opponent. All of that makes it tough to justify backing the 76ers to win by margin in this spot, even if they are the more public side. Toronto's current form, their underdog track record, and their success in this specific matchup all tilt the spread conversation in their direction rather than toward Philly. As our first pick for this matchup, the Toronto Raptors to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Both the 76ers and Raptors are among the slower teams in the league, which naturally pulls the posted total down. The pace can feel methodical at times, with plenty of half-court sets and possessions that run deep into the shot clock. However, this is the second meeting on back-to-back days, and that is where the story changes a bit. Fatigue tends to show up more on defense than on offense, especially late in games. Guys might be a half step late on rotations, closeouts come a little slower, and that is where easy baskets appear, even if the overall tempo is not frantic. You also often see shorter possessions in these spots, not because the teams suddenly become run and gun, but because tired players are less interested in grinding through 5 different actions every trip. They take earlier shots they like, they attack mismatches quicker, and when legs get heavy, defenders foul more frequently. That all adds up to more trips to the free throw line and more points on the board, even if the pace on paper still looks slow. The recent numbers support the idea that scoring can sneak higher than the market expects in this type of situation. The over is 4-2 when Toronto has been a home underdog, so when they are getting points in their own arena, games have leaned toward higher totals. The over is also 4-2 for the Raptors when they have 0 days of rest, which fits the same fatigue pattern where defenses slip just enough to open things up. For the 76ers, the over sits at 10-8 in their road games, which suggests that away from home, their contests have slightly favored the higher side of the total. When you blend the slow baseline tempo with the back-to-back fatigue, the recent overtrends, and the expectation of more free throws and cleaner looks, you get a matchup that can easily outgrow a modest number. It might not feel like a track meet when you watch it, but both efficiency and situational factors point toward more points than the raw pace labels would suggest. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Boston Celtics versus Indiana Pacers. You walk into this matchup and it feels like two franchises headed in completely different directions sharing the same court for one night. Boston shows up with a record of 24-14, sitting near the top of the East and carrying one of the strongest overall profiles in the league, the kind of resume that usually belongs to a quiet contender rather than a retooling team. Indiana, on the other hand, is stuck at 8-31 and staring up at everyone else in the conference after a brutal stretch that included a 13-game losing streak before they finally remembered what winning felt like this week. Odds makers have looked at that picture, squinted at all the injury notes, and still landed with Boston as a mid-single-digit road favorite in that 5.5 to 6 point pocket depending on where you check. That number tells you a lot by itself. Books are basically saying, even with key pieces missing, we still trust this structure more than Indiana's current reality. And honestly, that is not crazy. Boston is doing all this with its headliner in street clothes. Jason Tatum is still out for the season, rehabbing that Achilles and not having logged a single minute. Jaylen Brown, the guy carrying the scoring load and the leadership mantle, is listed as doubtful with a cranky back. Sam Hauser might or might not go with that hamstring. Josh Minott is already ruled out with the ankle. So on paper, you could look at this and think, is this too many bodies missing for a road favorite spot? Then you look across at Indiana's side of the medical chart and realize Boston is not the only one missing star power. Tyrese Halliburton, the engine and the GPS of this offense, has been ruled out for the entire season with his own Achilles issue. Benedict Mathurin is shelved indefinitely with that thumb problem. Obi Toppin is stuck watching after foot surgery for a stress fracture. Isaiah Jackson still has not been given the green light to fully return after his concussion. And Andrew Nembhard is dealing with his own back soreness question. So what is left is a Pacers team that leans heavily on Pascal Siakam and a rotating cast of role players trying to create something that looks like a functional offense against top-tier opponents. Here is the thing. Even with the injuries, Boston still has a clear identity that tends to travel. Peyton Pritchard is the steady hand at the point, getting them into sets and keeping the ball moving. And Fernie Simons has shifted into that lethal off-ball scorer who punishes every little mistake, almost like a built-in "are you paying attention" test for opposing defenses. Neemias Queta hoovers up rebounds and second chances, the sort of work that never goes viral but wins you road games. Joe Mazzulla is leaning on tough, defensive-minded wings who are happy to guard first and worry about glory later, and that kind of mentality usually holds up when you leave home. We have also seen this exact matchup play out very recently, which helps. Boston has already handled Indiana twice in the past few weeks. At home, they won by 8 in a game where they had to climb back and then clamp down late. In this same building in Indianapolis, they blew the doors open and won by 18, with the scoreboard tilting hard in their favor once their offense settled into a rhythm. In both games, Boston looked like the more mature team. They controlled the physical side, handled the late-game moments, and made Indiana work incredibly hard just to find clean looks without Halliburton steering the ship. Now, to be fair, Indiana is not walking in with pure doom and gloom vibes. They did snap that huge skid by beating the Hornets. They followed it up by smacking the Heat in a feel-good, everyone hits shots kind of win. That matters in a locker room. Confidence is a real thing. But if you look beneath the surface, those wins came on the back of hot shooting swings and big efforts from Siakam and Nembhard, rather than some deep structural fix that suddenly patched every crack. So when you step back and think like a bettor, you are really asking one question. Over the course of 48 minutes, which group is more trustworthy to execute, to generate good half-court looks, and to string together actual defensive stops often enough to justify being the team laying points on the road? Boston's profile, even with the injury noise, still screams organized, efficient, and repeatable. Indiana's profile, right now, leans much more toward we need a hot shooting night and a mini miracle or two. That gap in reliability is exactly what that mid-single-digit spread is inviting you to take a stand on. As our first pick for this matchup, the Boston Celtics to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full-game side pick. Boston's offense can put up big numbers, and the recent 140-122 win over Indiana proved they are fully capable of turning this matchup into a shootout when everything is clicking. They knock down threes in bunches. They crash the offensive glass. They create extra possessions with smart ball pressure. So on some nights, this team looks tailor-made for overs because the math just piles up. But if you watched that recent 103-95 game between these same teams, you saw the other version of how this can play out. Boston fell behind, tightened things up, and turned the second half into something closer to a playoff rehearsal than a regular season track meet. Fouls slowed down, possessions got more deliberate, and the Pacers found themselves grinding for every halfway decent shot. That game never really felt like it was racing toward a huge combined total. It felt like two teams stuck in a long chess match. The context now leans even more in that direction. Indiana's offense without Haliburton is much more deliberate, even if the overall pace can still look fast. You get a lot more Siakam touches in the mid-post, more Nembhard pick and roll when he is available, and shooters like Aaron Nesmith, Johnny Furphy, and Jay Huff spacing out around the action. It is functional enough to have good nights, but it also tends to bog down when defenses stay connected and force them into late clock jumpers. On those nights, scores can fall short of where you would expect based on past seasons. Stat-wise, the Pacers' offensive rating has slipped toward the bottom of the league this year, and their defense still lives in the bottom pack too. That combination usually screams wild, high-scoring chaos. But there is a twist. Boston's own profile is built around winning the possession battle with extra shots from offensive rebounds and good turnover control, not just trading fast break buckets. They can speed up the game in terms of number of trips, but they are also perfectly willing to squeeze a few more seconds out of each important possession when it matters. So you end up with a game that has plenty of possessions but not necessarily the most efficient looks for both sides for all 48 minutes. It also matters who is missing on offense. Haliburton is not just a scorer, he is a walking easy shot creator for everyone else. Mathurin is another high-volume piece on the wing. Toppin and Jackson remove finishing and vertical spacing. Even if Indiana has enjoyed that little shooting spike against Charlotte and Miami, expecting that exact level of shot making to continue against a long, switch-heavy Boston defense is a big leap. On Boston's side, the injuries pull some scoring pop off the floor too. No Tatum, possibly no Brown. That naturally puts more weight on structure and spacing rather than pure star shot creation. When teams lean more on role players, possessions can flatten out a bit, and you tend to see more empty trips mixed in with the hot stretches. So when you put it all together, the story feels less like run and gun for 48 minutes, and more like extended stretches of scoring, but with enough dry spells and defensive stretches to drag the combined number back towards something a little lower than the books are teasing. We already have proof of concept for that script in this specific matchup. And with both rosters thinned out on the offensive side, it does not take many extra empty trips to tilt a number like 224.5 toward the lower side of the ledger. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.